I want to thank you for attending. Thank you for your patience, Ramona. Thank you for your help, Mr. Francis. Thank you for your help when you needed it. I wanted just to remind everybody that our City of Lapeer rules and procedures are on our website. Feel free to read through those. That might help you have a little clearer picture of what we're doing, why we're doing it, who can talk, who can't talk, that kind of thing. I, for one,
Look at Atwood and Brady. It's kind of funny to see their body language. I'm sure I'm reading too much into it, but part of the reason I'm doing this video is I heard people give Commissioner Petrie more credit than I feel like she deserved for the way that meeting ran. There are a lot of issues where they removed, I think it was G4, but Josh's desire to talk about some of the things that were recently put on the record. And there was really nothing in that meeting that was particularly controversial. She didn't have to exercise particularly strong leadership, which is not to say she did a poor job. It's just, I don't think she was especially challenged in this meeting. I don't think the fact that it went smoothly is necessarily to her credit, other than she was far less verbose than the mayor tends to be. The mayor, agree with him or disagree with him, is verbose. It's indisputable. And Brady can be, people point to that. He hasn't been in quite some time, because these guys have kind of been silenced, and we'll get into that a little bit.
Was raised outside the city, but my family were business owners in the city, so I spent a lot of my childhood in the city. So I love when people come from surrounding areas and give us their opinions, because I know they come here and use it.
So, yeah, of course she does. There may be some truth to that. I think if you're the county seat, then you should solicit the feedback of people who live in the surrounding areas, not necessarily are in the solely in the voting district that you represent. However, I'll say a lot of the people that come to speak in support of the mayor, of her, tend to be people from outside the city. So that is kind of her audience in a lot of ways. That's her base of support. Like, yes, I got that she was elected, and she was elected by the voters of Lapeer. No doubt. I don't see a re-election coming next year. It's much easier. Well, it can be easier to get in than stay in. I guess it kind of depends. If you gain some momentum as an incumbent and get that name recognition, that can help a lot. I don't think things are going swimmingly right now, though, so I would be surprised to see her get reelected.
And I also agree that they don't vote, and I wish that more people that voted would come and share their, they don't vote in the city, I should say, wish they'd come and share their opinion here.
Careful what you wish for.
With us and not behind a keyboard.
And I don't know that that's entirely fair. Some people maybe have schedule conflicts that prohibit them from being able to come. Other people maybe just don't want to sit there for 5 hours and watch the circus. I understand when people say things anonymously that sometimes you got to take that with a grain of salt. You can look at somebody like Adrian Cross, who's very articulate for sure and has very reasoned arguments, and you see those pop up in the discussion group quite a bit. And I understand that maybe you give it a little less, one might be inclined to give it a little less weight because they don't really know who it's coming from. It doesn't take away from the validity of what they're saying, however.
Many people, there's a lot out there. I really don't get into it because so much of it is half information, wrong information, exaggerated information. Some people think that they have a finger on the pulse of everything that's happening here, and I'm just going to tell you that very few do.
And so that comment, I think there's partial truth to it, but I have done this with hashtag, and I could do this with hashtag. There are times where I'm doing something on that platform or this platform publicly that are on the basis of things that the public doesn't know about. So I get it. However, I hear that from her a lot, is that you, the community, only have so much information. You don't know everything that's going on. We should have all the information. Again, I understand that when it comes to like personnel matters, there are rights that employees have. That's probably the primary exception, if not only exception. So to say kind of like to try to shroud what's happening behind the scenes to explain away your decisions and say, oh, I do this because I have all the information, and most of y'all, you just don't. It's partly your fault. That's true. Maybe not entirely. It is the responsibility of the citizen to be as informed as possible. However, you can make it easier, and I don't think this commission has done a great job of that.
So I think you should be careful about what you read. Just because it's in writing or on social media does not make it always true.
Correct. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that sometimes artificial intelligence makes mistakes, that a Google search may not be reliable, that an individual could be very biased, right? No question about it. But you have to take in the information that's available to you and work with it. I don't think it's for her per se to try to marginalize people's sources of information in such a blanket way. The individual really has that responsibility to sift through the noise and see what is solid. And I know a lot of people will say I'm biased. That's cool. Been trying to make this point recently. No one's going to hold me hostage with the word journalist. Take me, leave me, do what you will with this. I don't care. Sometimes it's for an audience of one, that audience is me. Other times I am trying to keep the community informed, engaged, not always skillful, not always happy with the job I do with it. However, it is up to each person to think to determine whether or not they believe what I'm saying as an example is informed. Pissant Commissioner Petrie. I'm not going to tell you don't listen to Commissioner Petrie, don't listen to Mayor Hing. Make up your mind. Listen to everybody, make up your mind. Determine what resonates as truth with you.
I too wish people would come out from behind their keyboard. And I know that people get nervous to speak, but if you want to make a change, if you want to make a good difference.
That irritates me, the good difference. As if you cannot make a good difference from behind a keyboard, or you're not making a good difference when you are critical of your government, which is about the most American thing there is to do. And keep in mind, this is at a whole new level than I've ever seen in Lapeer. Other people can disagree. I know we've had the cannabis situation. We've certainly, just in my 7 or 8 years here, had things bubble up that were controversial locally, but for such a sustained volume of discontent, I don't think you can sweep that under the rug. And to characterize anybody who's expressing that discontent in whatever way as there's only a good way and a bad way, I don't know, man. I don't love that moral absolutism. There are certain things I hold to. I try not to comment on that which people cannot control, right? You don't see me making comments about that. I do satirical things, and even when I do those satirically, it concentrates like on behaviors and whatnot, and not things that people can't control. So,
And I'm going to stress good difference. Come on to our meetings and tell us what, not that you hate the person, because that doesn't get anybody anywhere. Not that
I agree with that, but I think it's really easy, and I do this too, where I can zero in on a critical comment and ignore 9 supportive comments. So yeah, there have been meetings where people have lined up to speak out and kind of rail against the mayor and whoever. But there's a consistent group of people who show up week after week and express some of these frustrations, but that's really the exception to the rule. Most people are not talking about how they hate anybody or anything like that. It's just, sometimes I feel like we're getting gaslit a little bit in these closing comments. There's some straw man arguments.
that you hate their methods. Let's talk about policy. Let's talk about what we are voting down.
You talk about policy. If I want to show up and talk about how I hate your methods, that's my right, and that's completely valid. We do vote people into office because of how we want to be represented. Sometimes we do just trust you to make the informed decision because we don't have time, and I'm speaking we as a community, each one of us doesn't have time to sift through each and every data point that you have access to, that it is your job to digest before voting for us. So when we see how you behave at the dais, that does give us an indication of maybe we put the wrong person in, or this person is as solid as I thought they were based on how they conduct themselves up there. So it's fair game, like it or not. You talk about policy, do it effectively. Maybe that's all anyone will have anything to say about.
That people are just livid over, because that's where we can make a change, policy. Or how we're gonna vote. Now, I'm just gonna tell you, many of you out there, just because I've been coming for about 5 years now, many of you out there.
And that's kind of a flex, I get it. Let her go.
Have only been coming since November.
So now, again, you're trying to say we don't have the whole picture, or at least those of you who have only been paying attention since November. You have a wider view than most of us because you've been coming for 5 years. Great. Maybe that adds a little bit of context to what's happening that most people don't have. But let's not pretend that without that little bit of extra context, the rest of us couldn't possibly have a justifiable opinion on what's happening with the city commission. It's only had we been paying attention since 1932 that we could really have a good gauge of what's happening now. That's not true.
Which is, okay, glad you're here. But you need to go back and see what's been happening in our city for much longer than just since November.
Why? Do we? Would it help? Sure. Again, more context. But don't think that in order for somebody to hold you accountable, that they have to be Lapeer historians. They don't. They see what's happening in real time with their own eyes. And if somehow that message is getting lost in a way detrimental to your agenda or what you're trying to accomplish, that's on you to communicate it better, not on the rest of the town to read every book at the library to try to catch up.
There's quite a history there. If anybody cares to look into it, there's people to ask.
And who would those people be, right? I imagine you and the mayor. Like, you're supposing that people aren't asking because what they say and what they express behind the keyboard or at the meeting doesn't line up with your view. If only they would come talk to you, then they would have so much more insight and be illuminated and feel differently. Doubt it.
I sat on this board since November of 23, and I was told by one of the commissioners, "Do you just love to vote no?" No, I don't love to vote no, but I do have my own mind. I have my own opinion. I was elected to be checks and balances. I am not a yes person. I'm always a, what about this? What about this? What about this? How about that? I'm not ashamed that I ask questions.
And again, who is ashamed that they ask questions? That is kind of, again, another like, what are you saying there? Nobody is upset with you for asking questions. Nobody's even, I should say, I believe that most people are not upset with you for asking questions. And I don't believe that the majority of the community is upset with you for voting no either. These are just blanket things that you're throwing out to try to say like, oh, this is why there's all this clapback about what we're doing. When I'm just asking questions and I don't like to, whatever, man.
It helps me form a educated decision, because it's not my money. It is not my money. I am spending your money, the taxpayers here. So I ask a lot of questions. I'm not ashamed of it. It's how you learn.
Please keep asking questions. Glad you're being a good steward of our money.
But I need you to know that I voted by myself. Occasionally, Ms. Glisman voted with me. But I voted by myself a lot. I will live with that. the history will show why I voted that way or how I voted. I'm okay with that because I vote my conscience.
So what she's doing here, I think, is speaking to Brady and Atwood's frustration that they are essentially marginalized by the current board as constructed. It's more obfuscation. Like, no, they're not upset by that. They're upset by the process. They're upset by the feeling that things are determined before that information that you speak of that we don't sometimes have is hashed out in full view of the community. When you walk in and you vote on something like these corrective actions, which we're going to talk about in a second, and there's no discussion there, it feels awkward. That's frustrating, not just for them, for everybody.
My identity isn't this. This is not my identity. It's something that it's a task that I've been
Who said it's your identity, and why do you feel the need to defend it here and now?
given for the term of 4 years, and I was taught that when you're going to
Glad you understand it's 4 years.
do something, do it the best of your ability, which I know that I'm doing the best of my ability.
Not going to speak to that. I'd love for you to leave a comment and tell me about Commissioner Petrie, Mayor Pro Tem Petrie doing things to the best of her ability.
It doesn't feel good to be outvoted. I went home many nights frustrated, like, what? Oh my gosh, I voted by myself again. Sometimes there were tears because I was so frustrated because I have other things in my life that are so important to me. And so there were a lot of frustrating times where I was outvoted. There were 3 people that voted together all the time. Mr. Brady, Mr. Atwood, and Ms. Swindoll very rarely broke. They mostly always voted together. And so I would call that a voter block. Not really, it's not a block. It's 3 people that voted together, it's the majority. So now the majority, and not always the majority, sometimes it's a full consensus. I don't think that I'm just correcting somebody in the audience, we did not censure Mr. Brady and Mr. Atwood.
This is what, this frustrates me so much. Because an audience member, one person maybe has a slight misunderstanding or misspoke or whatever, we're going to zero in on that detail.
We included something in the record regarding their behavior just so that it was in the record. It was not punitive. It didn't
That's nonsense, right? It was not punitive.
go on their record, so to speak.
We wanted it on the record, but it didn't go on their record. Whose record did it go on? Oh, well, the city's record, right? It's not punitive. Anytime you deal with corrective action, it is the beginning of a punitive process, much like the mayor making motions is the beginning of a voting process, right? If you are at work and you get a verbal write-up, it is a verbal write-up for you. Your job is documenting it. They are writing it, typing it, whatever. There's documentation because they are starting to lay the foundation for progressive corrective action. The next step is a write-up for you. It'll be the second time that they have documented it. And then, there's going to be a suspension, a termination. We know how this goes. Me better than most, probably. So I just don't, it's intellectually dishonest to say, like, this was not punitive, it wasn't a corrective act. Come on. Like, so why did you do it? You did it to silence them. I get it. It's to have good, orderly meetings. Right. We don't want the discourse. We only want Mayor Hing to wax poetic for 2 hours. We don't want Brady interrupting with his points of order. And we're not even going to discuss it at the dais. We're just going to bang, 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 vote for it all. We're going to take the motion the mayor wrote, whoever wrote it, and we're going to immediately vote for it without discussion, without any thought to how commissions can change. And y'all 3 have continued to give away your legislative power. You continue to do it.
It was not a punishment. We included it because we're trying to get through these meetings with decorum. I mean,
you'll speak when spoken to, right? I mean, the decorum, if you want to get through the meetings with decorum, apply it across the board. You're not. And it's really easy for some of y'all to stay silent when you're kind of just all in sync and on the same page on every issue. Sure, we'll let the mayor do this, we'll do that, we'll make him the point of contact for Bodman. He can make motions, he can gavel the hell out of this guy, whatever. You can say that you're going to shoot somebody, you can't. So the decorum, you're all guilty of whatever decorum. So to isolate two of them is it just doesn't sit well with the community. Read the room. Read the room. Look at what the city of Lapeer wants. Look at what people in the surrounding area want, right? Since you take that into consideration. Most people did not want to see that corrective action. They want to see a spirited debate because they don't like how things are going. But again, we don't have all the information. We've only been paying attention since November.
There's nothing wrong with raising our standards to be high standards. And
there isn't. But that's a loaded comment too, right? You're saying that these children next to you who you had to discipline your kids weren't operating at high standards, and now the rest of y'all are trying to elevate them to it. It's condescending. Look that word up if you don't know what it means.
good standards. I don't think it's funny to be a sitcom. I don't think the memes are funny at all.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't. You are the butt of some of the worst jokes, right? You and the mayor, even more so. Like McCarthy, Glissman, my husband's a judge, I like lilacs. People, really, that's pretty lighthearted. Glissman in particular has been really cool about it and shows some of her seasoned nature as an elected official. You take it hard because the truth hurts, right? Like that. I put out a couple videos, AI videos in the last couple days, depending when I release this one, that go way hard. Aaron, who you mentioned or are about to, is very, very skillful. He's very skillful with his cultural references, whether it's Princess Bride, whether it's Shrek, as Mike Womack mentions, and maybe I'll clip that and put that at the end of this. I'm the guy who's got people, piss hands pissing in bongs that the mayor's smoking out of. So zero in on me if you have to. I'll be that guy. But don't just start thumping on the community as a whole.
I think that the people that are putting the memes up there about our entire city, not just the city commission, the person that is putting things up there that are very negative about our city,
they're very negative about you, or at least the mayor. Actually, you, for the most part, skated by. There have been a few things, like, again, I have you sunning Brady and Atwood and dropping little mini versions of them. He, for the most part, really has pretty well left you alone. And most of the things he's done, a more self-aware person perhaps would laugh at them. Maybe a few of the digs would hurt a little bit. I don't know. I can't think of everything he's done. But
they're not helping our city. They don't live in our city anymore.
Okay, not helping our city. There are a lot of people who disagree with that. A lot of people disagree with that. Again, a light needed to be shined on this commission, and he has helped to do that. He's not the only one. You're talking about Aaron. You're talking about Brain Media in particular, it would seem. Try not to sneeze in this video. That's your opinion. Let's just make it clear. You have the right to express your opinion. I suppose this is a chance for you to soapbox in your closing comments. Your mentor, your sidekick, whoever he is, that's normally sitting right next to you, takes every opportunity in his closing comments to do that. So I guess you may as well do it too. But a lot of people would disagree that those, sure, they can be edgy, but they're keeping people informed in a satirical way, but calling attention to matters that individuals can then go observe for themselves. With strip away all the AI nonsense, strip away my BS. They can just, now they're interested. So now they're going to go watch. Now they're going to go to YouTube. Now they're going to find out for themselves.
And they don't care about our city.
Bullshit.
I love this community and I love the people in it, and I am doing this for that reason, for that reason only. My history, my roots are here. I love the community. I don't censure people, so I'm apologizing to Mr. Atwood and Mr. Brady. If I missed your hand up, please speak up. I'll need to hear that.
I believe that. I don't think she was trying to ignore anybody with their hand up. I believe Mindy Schwab kind of called that out in her public comment. I don't think Petrie intended to do that. So,
And Mr. Brady, I don't know what you're referring to still of what you were point of ordering about the public comments, but we've gotten a lot of blowback about censoring people and not letting them say what they wanted. So if you didn't notice, I let everybody say whatever they wanted because I can't control what you say.
you weren't pressed though. It's easy to say that, like, the most smoke out of any public comment probably was Cloutier at John DeAngelis, right? And that was, I'm tired of hearing about people who live outside the city. And John DeAngelis, for context, is a big Hing supporter. So yeah, I'm not surprised that Commissioner Petrie is making a point to have his back in that. But I mean, I think it's fair. You want people from Metamora and whatnot to come and speak up. I'm not zeroing in on John per se. I'm just not surprised because you don't see a lot of people in city, I don't think, that are showing up trying to support her and the mayor and this commission right now. People are trying to support Atwood and Brady because they feel like they're being shut down, and it's not even about agreeing with Atwood and Brady. It's just desiring that they be able to have discussion up there.
I only can control how I feel and what I hear and what I let fall off my back. So again, thank you for your patience, thank you for coming, thank you for caring. Is it Anya or? Yeah, thank you for your art. I've seen some of it, and thank you for your idea for what we had. I'm still working on that, just so you know. Again, thank you for coming, thank you for your patience. God bless all of you. Adjourn. Woohoo!
Glissman jumped. Glissman does jump. She jumped there. I think they even talk about it. Man, Petrie does grab that gavel quick, and she slams it hard. So, I'm not particularly impressed by that meeting. She had a scowl on her face most that meeting. Maybe it's because I was in the room. I don't know. It doesn't matter, except that you are the leader. And whether it's you or Mayor Hing since November, whoever's been chairing that meeting has not brought the best energy to it. Again, more like kind of scolding all of us. Man, do your job.